As 2020 dawned, we saw the light. Hope abound for a fruitful year. The possibilities were too many to count. Our farmland was waiting to accept the first seed of the year, to start the process from planting to harvest all over again. Then, the world stopped. Our homes became our bunkers. We pulled our families closer. Food, materials, possessions once taken for granted were now priorities. Trips to the grocery store were now missions to keep life moving. Is this real? The supply chain must remain intact. Our farmers and ranchers stood in the gap. Farmers kept moving. Farmers kept plowing. Farmers kept doing. The wheels turned, the sun shined down, and the good Lord brought the rains when needed. The crops and animals grew. The world may have stopped, but the farmer, the rancher, agriculture did not. Just like every year, we did our jobs the only way we know how. Without a complaint, just work. One day at a time, dawn to way past dusk. The world may have changed, but the farmer remains the same before COVID-19 as after. The Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation, critical and essential.
Winston Churchill repeated the phrase, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toils, tears, and sweat," during his first speech describing his dedication to doing what was right. I believe this phrase embodies the way Mississippi farmers and ranchers reacted to all the changes in 2020. When the rest of the world was forced to shut down, you, our farmers, never stopped working. Every day of every year, you give your blood, sweat, and tears to provide for the greater good of our nation. And it seems that COVID-19 pandemic gave the people outside the agriculture industry the opportunity to recognize you and your dedication. Our slogans, "Still Farming" and "The Supply Chain Starts With Us," gave the world a look into our daily lives. The nation now realizes the importance of our industry. The United States Department of Homeland Security declared agriculture workers as critical and essential, which brought positive attention to agriculture and the issues Farm Bureau advocates for in Jackson and in Washington, D.C. Although COVID-19 forced everyone to find new ways to operate, MFBF has accomplished much this year, especially in the form of assistance for our farmers and rural communities who felt a direct impact from this worldwide pandemic. The beef and dairy industries immediately began to suffer at the onset of the pandemic. Farm Bureau led efforts to provide farmers with assistance in the CARES Act, which included appropriations of $9.5 billion to USDA for the livestock industry. The sweet potato and catfish industry saw a major decline in market demand. Both industries asked Farm Bureau to support their request to USDA for assistance in the Purchase Commodity Product Program. We worked closely with these industries, conveying their message to Congress, and funding allowed USDA to purchase these products as a part of the USDA aid package included in the CARES Act. Our row crop producers are no strangers to declining markets, especially with the recent China trade dispute. Congress allocated a $14 billion infusion into the USDA Commodity Credit Corporation, allowing USDA to provide aid to these industries for the rest of the year. We also supported the Mississippi Back to Business Liability Assurance and Health Care Emergency Response Liability Protection Act, which protects employers, manufacturers, and small business owners from frivolous COVID-19 lawsuits, allowing the state's economy to move forward. As government orders forced Mississippians to live their lives from the confines of their homes, we realized rural broadband was more important than ever. We work with our U.S. Senators, Senator Roger Wicker and Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, to push for federal funding to make sure underserved areas of the country have access to broadband. In doing so, plans were announced for a $9 billion 5G fund, the launch of the $20.4 billion Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, and more than $500 million were appropriated to the USDA for its Reconnect loan and grant program. I've worked with the FCC Precision Agriculture Task Force to develop policy recommendations to promote the rapid and expanded deployment of broadband internet access on agricultural lands across the U.S. As chair, we have conducted more than 18 meetings this year to explore how to promote the adoption of precision agricultural technologies and how it will affect the demand for skilled labor in our farming communities for years to come. We also supported the Mississippi Electric Cooperatives Broadband COVID-19 Act, which allocated $75 million to the development of broadband in rural Mississippi. The Act placed $65 million in grant funds for electric cooperatives willing to develop connectivity and match the funds dollar for dollar, and $10 million to broadband providers willing to connect rural Mississippi. We will continue to work on this very important issue for the betterment of all farmers, ranchers, and rural Mississippians. Because the U.S. went into a nationwide lockdown, labor also became a major issue for our farmers, trying to get their seasonal guest workers into the country. We quickly developed and presented a plan to USDA Secretary Sonny Perdue to make sure policies and procedures remained in place for H-2A and H-2B workers. Thankfully, these workers were deemed essential, and we saw the large majority of our guest workers arrive in Mississippi farms as planned. Despite the storms working against us this year, we were also able to support numerous other areas of our organization. We supported multiple measures during the 2020 Mississippi legislative session, including the Uniform Petition of Heirs Property Act, the Livestock Liability Bill, the Future of Mississippi Agriculture Bill, and the Marketplace Facilitator Act. We also launched a Federal Political Action Committee, or PAC, after 93% of our delegates voted in favor of its establishment at the 2019 Annual Convention Business Session. The MFBF Furthering Agriculture for Rural Mississippians Fund Political Action Committee, also referred to as our Farm Fund, is comprised of Farm Bureau members from across Mississippi who voluntarily contributed to the efforts supporting agriculture and rural Mississippi's friends in Congress. As of now, MFBF members have contributed more than $78,000 to the Farm Fund. At the beginning of this year, the USDA Risk Management Agency contracted a research firm to conduct an independent study to review changes to the federal crop insurance program covering the Batcher farmland along the Mississippi River south of Vicksburg, which is subject to frequent flooding almost every year. MFBF hosted representatives from this firm for a series of farm listening sessions and tours of the area to view the problems firsthand. Farm Bureau will continue working with this firm to develop changes to existing crop insurance programs that will address the ongoing challenges this area faces each year. The Environmental Protection Agency finally released the long-awaited supplemental environmental impact statement for the Yazoo Backwater Pumps Project. The statement proposes installing a pump station in the South Delta to operate when the water elevation reaches 87 feet. Farm Bureau will continue to push EPA and the members of Congress to support the installation of these pumps so flooding in the South Delta can be a thing of the past. As we close the books on 2020, a year of change and a year we will never forget, you have shown your perseverance by weathering low commodity prices, trade wars with China, and now a global pandemic. You have shown the world your determination, your love for our land, and willpower to overcome any obstacle. It will take a lot more than a global pandemic for our farmers to throw in the towel. Our days are long and our jobs are not easy, but we wouldn't have it any other way. As this year's virtual convention theme states, we are critical and essential. It has been an honor and a privilege as your president to watch you show the world just how critical you are. Although most rural Americans have always understood us, a large portion of the population has taken production of our basic needs for granted. This crisis has been a glaring reminder that the responsibility of producing our nation's food, fiber, and shelter falls on the shoulders of each of you, our farmers, ranchers, and Farm Bureau members. Though the responsibility is great, you can rest easy knowing that the state's largest general farm organizations stands by you. We are constantly striving to improve your life and how you make a living. As we move into 2021, I pray for your families and your livelihood. I look forward to working with you as we carry out our essential roles in the lives of those around us. Again, thank you for allowing me to be your president. God bless Mississippi. God bless our farms. And most of all, God bless America. Thank you.